Coming up on the program, I've got Southern Illinois guitarist and singer-songwriter Chris Chamness. Stay with us. My guest today is Chris Chamness. He is a guitarist and singer-songwriter from Southern Illinois who's played around the region. He is a name that is certainly familiar to those of you who listen to the local music scene. He has played from St. Louis to Nashville and been in many bands. Before we talk to Chris, let's first hear from him. Let's listen to Chris Chamness.
Someone turn the light out. I can't go to sleep. The city's watching over me. Lying in my bed, putting my eye to you. Well, never mind, I tried to get through. Never mind, I know what to do. I've been living with my ghost. He sings to me and gives me wild dreams. I've been trying to let go. Ecclesiastic, the sound of songs I know. Someone turn the noise down. I can't seem to think. A million words are flying through space. Lying in my bed, who am I to you? Well, never mind, I tried to get through. Never mind, I know what to do. I've been living with my ghost. He sings to me and gives me wild dreams. I've been trying to let go. Ecclesiastic, the sound of songs I know. Living with my ghost. He sings to me and gives me wild dreams. I've been trying to let go. Ecclesiastic, the sound of songs I know. this mess that I dreamed of. I got so addicted to you and the way you move in the night. People act like they've never seen love when they catch me talking to you. I just wanted to stand in your light. Desperation, love's gonna find me, gonna make me forget my own mind. You find it in the darkest places where sense and reason are blind. There's no time, but I don't wanna go now. There's no reason that I shouldn't stay. There's a feeling that I can't find, and I can't find a way to stand up when the miles take you further away. I don't wanna lose it, but there goes my mind. Wave goodbye as it passes before me, and the shadows reach for the sky. Desperation, love's gonna find me, gonna make me forget my own mind. You find it in the darkest places where sense and reason are blind. Keep on moving, I can't. Keep on moving, I can't. Keep on moving now without you. Keep on moving, I can't. Keep on moving, I can't. Keep on moving now without you.
Welcome back. Chris, welcome to the show. I've wanted to have you on for quite some time now. It's probably been a year and a half, honestly, since we talked about it.
Thanks very much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, the last time I saw you, believe it or not, was at John Brown's on the Square in Marion, a music venue bar there. One of the best, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
And you had shoulder-length hair. You've cut it off since then.
I did, yeah. And that's actually, back then, like I mentioned earlier, that was short for me because I used to have it like almost down to like my waist before too.
Yes.
So I kind of bounced back and forth between this and long hair, so we'll see. Maybe it'll come back.
I did 10 years of short hair, but this is my look, I suppose, is what it's become now.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of the long hair. But I wanted to ask you, your music is, I can tell that you're influenced by the British invasion sound in the 60s. I read in your bio that you were a big fan of the Beatles. Is that basically your influences and early influences as a younger person recording?
Yeah, for sure. They were some of my first influences, them and like The Who and all that. And then over time I discovered some of the like 90s alternative British bands that were huge there but maybe didn't get quite as much traction here, like like Suede, Pulp, The Verve, Supergrass, and then if you want to go kind of like on the bigger side of things, Oasis.
Yeah, Oasis for sure, and
Yeah.
the Verve as well. That's
I love the Verve.
It's one of my favorites. The Bittersweet Symphony is a great song. That's Ashcroft, right?
Yeah, Richard Ashcroft, and actually he's going to be. So I'm going over to Manchester in July to see Oasis for their Reformation tour, essentially, and Richard Ashcroft is opening for them.
Oh,
so
that is so
really
cool.
Excited about that.
Another band that I thought that your sound sort of reminds me of is the Kinks. Were you ever a fan of the Davies and the Kinks? Because the sound is similar.
I like some of their stuff. I haven't done as deep of a dive on their stuff as I should have. I started to a couple years back, but didn't continue past, I don't know, like 66, 67, something like that. But what I heard, I really liked. So.
And of the Beatles, what was it that turned you on to them? I mean, the whole catalog is amazing.
Yeah,
everybody's got their first album.
How much time do you have? So I think like either late '99 or late 2000, I can't remember. It was around one of those Christmases. They put out that Beatles One compilation.
That Red album, yeah. It's a red CD.
And I remember the commercials playing on TV. And I thought, especially whenever they like had footage of like the Apple rooftop performance from January 30th, '69, I just thought they looked so cool.
Yeah.
And like 9 or 10-year-old me was like, oh, I want to be a lot like them, you know. And so I think my mom or somebody got me that CD, and I just listened to it ad nauseum forever until I finally just started getting their albums. So really is like the one compilation that kicked it all off for me. But you know, like Revolver, Abbey Road, those are the ones that really like hit harder for me. So.
I love their psychedelic sounds like Sgt. Pepper and the White Album and things like that. But you know, it's always, everybody's got that song or track. It's usually the electric version of Revolution. It's the one.
Yeah, that's pretty cool too.
And so you grew up in Southern Illinois, right? So where did you grow up, and what was it like growing up in Southern Illinois? How did it influence you getting involved in music?
So I grew up in like this really small town called Steelville. It's got about like 2,000 people. I don't necessarily know how much that influenced what I got into music-wise or how I kind of came. I mean, there's been some like decently bigger musicians that came out of there. If it weren't for the fact that the guy that taught guitar, just the town over, he was the touring bass player for the band Head East. If you've ever heard of them, his name is Rich Creador, and he just passed last year. A very important person to me. If it weren't for him, I mean, like, and people like him being in Southern Illinois, I would have been a completely different person or maybe a different musician. So I'm really thankful, you know, that there were the few and far betweeners like him, you know, because there really wasn't that much of like an arts thing going on in Southern Illinois. So everything that I was getting into, I kind of had to find on my own. It wasn't like everybody was doing this or something like that. Like I was kind of one of the odd men out in a way, like finding this stuff. And and the whole time I wished that more people would do it. You know, I didn't feel particularly like happy about being the only person that was listening to some of this stuff. But
and you were lucky to have been exposed to those folks, then their knowledge and the skill sets.
Yeah.
Now, when did you get the music bug? Because I know you played music since you were much younger, and you didn't start on the guitar. You started on the drums.
Yeah, and I think that was really just because at that point in time, the band program at my school didn't really allow guitar that much. Like. And that was right around when I knew I actually wanted a guitar. Ever since I was like 1, I've taken different things and pretended they were a guitar, my mom said. And I would take like, you know, those little like things that kids push that like have the balls that pop on the inside of them. I'd pretend that was a guitar. She said I'd pretend nail clippers were a guitar. And there's footage of me when I was like 2 or 3 just like grabbing these like really awful, you know, kid acoustic guitars and just bashing on them, you know. And finally, when I was about 10, I asked for like a real one, and that was when I was playing drums, and I knew I wanted to switch to guitar. I was just going to do it anyway, but I wanted to play in the school band as well. And luckily, my band instructor was also one of those really cool people who was like, yeah, well, let's figure out a way. So, and then down the road, we figured out a way to hook the guitar up to like this rolling cabinet that we used for the marching band even too, like years later. So
that's really cool. So cool. So you had to do it on a marching band.
I did, yeah.
That is neat. Yeah, we weren't able to do anything like that, but that just sounds really cool. I can imagine seeing that roll down a pathway or something. And when you switched to guitar, you kind of left the drums behind. You knew that was it for you.
Yeah.
Did you teach yourself, or did you get lessons?
I got lessons for the first 7 years of playing, so from about 11 through 18. So basically, I stopped once I went away to college. And then from then on, I would still occasionally have lessons with Rich, and every time we'd get together, he'd teach me something. You know, it's just the way that it was. And he and I actually ended up being in a duo together for a while. him on like stand-up bass. You know, it was really great.
And when you went to college, where did you go? And that's when you started forming one of your bands, right?
Yeah, I've been in bands since I was like 14. I went to SIU in Carbondale. And I was in the music program there. And actually there, my applied instrument was piano instead of guitar.
Oh, cool.
I started out in the guitar program there. Didn't really like that guitar was like work, you know, and so I switched to something. I was like, well, if I'm going to work, I want it to be at something that I don't know how to play, and that was piano. So I eventually made my way through that program. But yeah, I've been in bands since I was like 14, like I said, and I definitely started playing a lot more in bands by the time I got into college and beyond.
Yeah, talk to me about the Monolithics. How did that come to be?
That was like that was like the first band that I got into out of college. It was I had played with a couple different guys who, like myself, were songwriters, and I was like, oh, it'd be so cool if I could get these 3 songwriters in a band together and get, you know, a really good rhythm section too. And so I basically kind of like worked on them each individually, you know, just kind of like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we did this, you know?
Wouldn't it be cool if we, like, I don't know, started a band?
Yeah, just like wore them down until they all agreed to do it, you know, and it turned out to be a really great thing. Like we had a lot of 3-part harmonies and stuff like that, and we changed members occasionally. Like one of the songwriters left, but we brought another one in who was, I mean, just as great, if not better.
What was the style of the band? What did they sound like?
It started off very garage rock in a way, like very Strokes oriented.
Yeah.
But then, like once we kind of changed it up a little bit, it started to take on more of like a Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young sound.
Oh man, I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was really like very, you know, definitely Americana in there, like mixed with just a little bit on the heavier side.
I bet Deja Vu was like a big album for you.
Huge. Yeah, I love that album. It was just because of that band that I even started listening to that.
Oh,
and
man.
Like Buffalo Springfield's second album Again.
Again,
So,
yes. Hung Upside
fantastic.
Down is a fantastic track.
I love that album.
But you know, the thing about Deja Vu is people know that album. It's iconic, and from the time it opens with "Carry On" questions to "Everybody I Love You" at the end, and it's just one of those. There were probably a lot of bands like yourselves that heard that and were like, "Man, we want to do something like that."
We used to play "Almost Cut My Hair" all the time.
Oh, that's a great song.
Yeah.
That's David Crosby.
Yeah.
And how long did you all play together?
That was a band from like 2015 to, I think, the pandemic. Honestly, is kind of what ended up splitting that band up in a way.
That probably happened a lot to musicians.
yeah.
Was that hard, the pandemic, for you to deal with as a musician? Because lots of artists can't play out anymore, right?
Yeah, it was especially those first couple months. Like I remember, I think I had my last show on March 8th, and I've got a thing for dates, and it was just like you kind of. You know, it was whatever that you were getting money, you know, from. It was great that my bills were covered and all that, you know, from the government and all that stuff. But I like kind of like lacked that sense of purpose by not being able to play. And so for the first like couple weeks, I was one of those many people who did like live streams, you know, and put like my Venmo or something like that up. But after a while, like that just kind of lost any sort of excitement whatsoever, like because you're not getting that interaction. You know, people can only love and comment on something so much, you know, until it's just kind of like, well, I still miss that human connection. But then like I think like right at the end of May in 2020, there were certain places that started to have like outdoor shows as long as everybody was like far enough apart, you know. And
you managed to make it work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so I got to start doing that again, and got like I would say like 75% back to like a normal schedule again, because there were some places that I had to play inside where I couldn't, you know, obviously anymore, and so they all had to be outdoors.
Did you find COVID to be a creative period for you? Because you know, if you are isolated or staying at home, did you find that you were playing around with melodies and lyrics and things?
At first, no, because it was such an odd time, and I think it kind of like really threw me off. But then once I got used to that isolation, then yeah, it absolutely did. Like a lot of the songs that I'm releasing now, I wrote probably, you know, in 20 or 21, you know, something like that.
And I wanted to ask, with Monolithics, you all played around regionally, right? You toured?
Nationally even, too, yeah.
Nationally?
Like we played all up and down the East Coast, all the way out to, we got as far west, I think, as Nebraska, but never went beyond that. I know we had like a West Coast tour planned, but something fell through, and I don't necessarily remember what. But
what was it like going on the road and doing that? Was it a fun experience? I find that people find it a little bit daunting at first, maybe.
Yeah, but then you kind of get used to it. You grow used to being uncomfortable. I would say you get comfortable with being uncomfortable is what I say. So it kind of like led me to being a lot more like I don't necessarily need to be pampered on the road and everything like that. Like, we'd sleep in the van sometimes.
And the camaraderie with your bandmates is very important too.
Yeah,
if you're around those people all the time and you don't get along,
Yeah, and of course, like even with that, you'll still argue over stupid stuff, and then you have to come back and be like, oh, we've been in the same vicinity for 3 weeks. It's okay, we'll be all right. So yeah, it was a lot of fun, and something that I don't regret doing. But like, if I ever do it again, I'm going to do it a lot smarter than I did back then. So
learning experience.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And after the Monolithics, is that when you decided to go solo? How did that transition come to be?
It was kind of like towards the end, like maybe in like 2019, whenever I was starting to write some stuff that I felt like wasn't necessary. I kind of felt like George Harrison in like the later end of the Beatles. I felt like I was writing some really good stuff that wasn't getting the same attention. And I was just like, well, I want to be able to have these songs, and have them be the way that I want them to be, and not really have like too many people like working on what goes into this. Because don't get me wrong, the bass player and the drummer that I work with still have a say, like on if I'm confused about a section and I'm like, I need help with this part, or I don't necessarily know what to do next. They help me out a lot. They're really great with arrangements, but. Yeah, it was just kind of like, and so I remember in the middle of 2019, I tracked some demos for 3 songs that I wanted to put out on an EP, and then right before the pandemic happened is whenever we started tracking all this stuff. So
and now that you do your own solo work and you play like you have today so far and will, but also you have a full band too, right? So you collaborate with any of the same people, or is it all new folks?
Yeah, so the thing about the Monolithic is I think we went through about 4 bass players, and but the last guy is the one that really I think he stayed around the longest maybe. He's fantastic. His name is Keith Campbell. He's actually originally from Kentucky. I think Mayfield, if I remember right. He signed on basically to be my bass player whenever I wanted to start this up, and then I asked the drummer Shane from the Monolithic as well if he wanted to join, and he did. And so they've been on every full band release that I've done so far, and will be on all the future ones too.
So let's talk about some of your releases. Talk to me about Square One.
Yeah, so that was the first thing that I did, and that was like the 3 songs that I did the demo of in 2019. There's What You've Got, Lie to Me, and Square One, and they were all actually songs that I had worked with the Monolithic on, but I just wasn't necessarily happy with them, and I did end up changing even some of the lyrics on some of them. We recorded that really we tracked all the basic stuff right before, like a month before the pandemic, and then the rest of it was done during. And which was like a really interesting experience.
Because you could do that in the studio,
yeah. It just had to be me and my producer, but we, it was it was a very strange time to do it. But it was just songs that I kind of felt leaned more in that like British alternative direction that I wanted to approach, than what I had been doing in the Monolithic, and so I just wanted to put something out that was just kind of like, this is who I am, apart from a band.
Yeah. Did you do that in Nashville, or did you do it in Southern Illinois?
In Nashville. We recorded at Toy Box Studios. My producer is Liz Shaw. He owns the place down there. It's in East Nashville.
What's it like working in that environment? Do you really enjoy that space?
Yeah, I do. And that's... I'm going to keep working down there as long as we can, because he's really great to work with. He really pushes me to be, better all the time.
Yeah.
He's a very constructive critic is the way that I'll put it. Like, I've definitely become a lot better of a musician in the last 5 years that I've worked with him because of working with him.
I mean, it's kind of hard to see it when you're the one doing it, right? You need another person listening and paying attention, and his skill set. I mean, he's not doing that, but for reasons.
Yeah, he's fantastic at his job. So I'm really happy to work with him, and I think he understands my vision. And it's been really great to watch his studio even just evolve, because he's added so much to it, over the years. So
and then you have a single, Concrete Skies, as well, and you're going to play that one here in a little bit.
Yeah,
talk to me about that one.
So that's actually the first pandemic song that I wrote. We were talking about stuff like that earlier. I remember I had just gone for a drive to get out, got so tired of being in the house.
I did that so many times. You just want to get out of the house.
Yeah.
I get it.
And I'd already had the music for it. Like, I'd just written all the movement stuff on a 12-string guitar. And I was like, I just remember looking up at the sky, and it was like a dreary day, and I felt very gray too, and so I just thought the sky kind of looked like concrete, which is such an obvious thing to say. But then that kind of got me thinking along those lines. And so I think I sat down maybe later that night, and the words just kind of started to come for that one. So and it was like, at first it starts off as like a very pessimistic song, but like by the end it's kind of like, but this isn't going to be forever, essentially, So,
and of course it wasn't, and then you were able to go out and play to full audiences again. That actually, I want to ask you, I read in part of your bio that you have, that sometimes you write music in like 10-second fragments. So do you just like hear a melody and you're like, ooh, that, and you sort of write that down?
Yeah, that, or like a line. Like I'll wake up from a dream and I'll have heard something, and I just try to grab like the last bit of it that I possibly can, or just I daydream a lot, and so that's sometimes when I start hearing things in my head. And I'll write like a verse just suddenly. It'll just happen. I'll just be sitting around thinking about nothing, and it will just kind of come from my subconscious, because it must be what I'm thinking about but not aware of. Is a lot of the time what I
do. You
tell
sometimes
people.
just like, if you write a lyric or a line or something, it can sit there for quite some time before you go back to it with something else.
Yeah. And one of the songs that I'm going to play today, called "Long Days," that's what happened. I wrote the first verse, and I didn't have like a tagline. I didn't have like a final like thing that I knew was going to make the verse a little more compelling, And it wasn't until like going to the gym and talking with this guy that I always talk with in there, and he told me this story about a friend of his that worked in prisons, and how he had asked the prisoners what it was like, and they said the days were long, but the years are short, so that's where I got the "long days, short years" line from. And so that was like kind of just like a good tag. And once I got that, the rest of the song just like wrote itself within about an hour. I just, like I said, it's just the things that kind of like, that's when I write best, is not forcing it, but just kind of like letting my subconscious work.
And you might find that once you've written something down, it sort of flows naturally into something else.
Exactly.
And you've got this summer coming out a new release, right?
Yeah, so I've started putting new singles out again. I put a couple out last year. There's one in August called "Nothing But the Stars," and then one in December called "Shadow the Sun." And these are all just like songs that I had written in another group, kind of like the Square One EP. So the next one coming out May 23rd is "Living with My Ghost." So I'm really excited about that one. I was actually listening to it on the way down, just to approve the final master. So.
Any previews of what some themes may be in that one?
That one is actually, oddly enough, we were just talking about the whole idea of living in your subconscious in a way. So that was, in a way, that's what it was like. And it was also another one of those pandemic songs where I felt like I was living with this version of myself that wasn't really present, or wasn't really there anymore. And so that's what the whole living with, one day I remember sitting down and being like, I feel like I'm living with my ghost right now, because I'm not really,
that's
here.
So cool. Yeah, that's a great concept.
And so it came from that, and then the rest of it is just kind of about, just the things that go on in your subconscious when you don't realize it.
And I know you'd mentioned that you'd release some singles and have some more. Do you find that it's more common now that artists will release a series of singles rather than a full album at a time?
Absolutely. I'd say it's a lot more common here. I've got a couple friends over like in the UK, and it seems a lot more common for them to put out albums instead there. I don't necessarily know why. I know they take in entertainment a bit differently from experience.
Yeah.
But it definitely, I would say, still worldwide though, it's a lot more common to put out singles, because you can, as a smaller artist especially, you can just like, put a new thing out every 2 to 3 months instead of having, people wait 2 to 3 years
and
for an album
instead.
Traction. Exactly, yeah, because people only have so much of an attention span, and not everybody is as album oriented as like I know that I am,
Me too.
And so it's just, so it's just like you may as well, because if you want people to pay attention to you, and maybe the next song that you put out grabs somebody different that had tried you out before that was like, I don't really like that one, So it's kind of it's almost like a new chance every 2 to 3 months instead.
And once you've got like 10 or so singles out, you could then put it together as an album too.
Which is one of my plans actually for next year, because I've got another set of like 4 songs that I want to record this year, and I'll slowly put them out as singles. But then I'm going to put a couple aside that I want to just be only on this like compilation thing that you can. So you can only get it if you get if you buy like the album or something.
That's an enticement in order to get you.
Exactly.
Well, and once you're later on down the road, later this year, next year, you want to come back on and do the full band over at Loud and Clear Studios. We'll do that too. I wanted to mention, you said from experience, so you've been to the UK, so you're not just a Beatles fan. You've traveled over there. What was that like?
Well, so I go over there a couple times a year and play for like about 2 weeks at a time, especially around like the Liverpool area.
And it's just the Beatles just everywhere on this.
Yeah. Well, and it also helps that like ever since I was a kid, I've been watching like Liverpool Football Club and stuff like that. So I had a friend. Here's the thing: is if the pandemic hadn't happened, this probably wouldn't have all happened either. I was supposed to go with a couple of my friends on a trip to Ireland in May of 2020. Well, that didn't happen, and so then I just ended up. There's a band that I mentioned earlier, Suede. They like never come to tour in America. And so I was like, well, I really want to see them. And they announced like a 25th anniversary tour for one of their albums. And so I was like, well, I'm just going to use my flight credit to go over there, stay for a few days, watch them play, and then I'll come home. And it was great. I loved getting to see them play. But while I was there, right before I left, I had a friend in St. Louis who had played over there before. And he's like, hey, when you're over there, let me know if you go up to Liverpool for because I had like a day off. I landed in London, saw Liverpool play, and then I took a train up to Liverpool the next day, which was a Monday. And he's like, hey, perfect day to be there. I'm gonna reach out to some of my friends that I know there. And so they got me out to the Cavern, and Mondays happened to be their open mic night there, but it's all original. And so I didn't plan on any of this, but they got me up on stage, lent me one of their guitars, so I got to play 3 of my own tunes. And from there, I just had people saying like, hey, if you ever want help getting some gigs over here, you really should do it.
That is so cool.
Yeah. And so then just like about 6 months later, I started doing that, like about every 5-6 months.
Little UK swing there,
Yeah. So it's been really great. I'll be back again in July. So.
So I just wanted to ask you that because when you said that, I thought, okay, he's been there. So that's
plenty.
Well, let's go ahead and get back to some more music. Okay. So we'll do that, and we'll come back and say goodbye.
Sounds good.
All right, more with Chris Chamness in just a second.
Excuse my jealous side, I'm going through a change. I played with all my demons when I lived inside a cage. I fed the lions with the fire to fuel my burning rage. Scattered all the images and tried to turn the page. What's the price of living when you've got nothing to spare? All you had was torn away and tossed up in the air. Everything was easy when you lived without a care. A slow decay like cigarettes till nothingness is there. Please believe me, there's no telling what I've lost, what I've gained, but no, nothing will remain inside my head. Nothing but the stars. When the blood that's flowing through your intercostal veins starts to freeze and turns to ash, the echoes of remains, will your spirit think of me as someone with a name? Or did you treat existence as all more or less the same? There's still a story left inside your ancient hollow bones, one that's never felt the breath that you had called your own. You tried to tell it once, but you were dragged down by the stone. Some things might be better kept to you and you alone. Please believe me, there's no telling what I've lost, what I've gained, but no, nothing will remain inside my head. Nothing but the stars. No, nothing will remain inside my head. Nothing but the stars will remain inside my head. Nothing but the stars.
And we're back. Chris, thanks for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate your patience with me. And before we go, I want to ask one more thing. People can listen to you on streaming and all the platforms, right?
Yep, and it's my full band stuff on there too. There is actually an acoustic EP that I put out in 23 of some of these songs that are coming out now that I just wanted to kind of get the bare bones out to be like, this is the process, you know. But most of the stuff on there is full band, and that's what I prioritize too. So it'll all be on there.
Well, thank you, and we'll do this again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
That was my guest, Chris Chamness. Thanks for watching, and join us next time.